Let's talk more about the release of the Benghazi report by the Republican-led House Select Committee and some of the reaction that we are seeing from both sides here. The State Department said, quote, the essential facts surrounding the 2012 attacks in Benghazi have been known for some time, end quote, and that they are working to implement recommendations from a previous report. And then there's this from the Clinton campaign. They say this committee's chief goal is to politicize the deaths of 4 brave Americans in order to try to attack the Obama administration and hurt Hillary Clinton's campaign. Joining me now is California Democrat Adam Schiff. He is one of the 5 Democrats on the House Select Committee on Benghazi. And, sir, in their news conference today, the Republicans were united, maybe not surprisingly, in criticizing Democrats on the committee. They say you politicized the report more than they have. What's your response to that?
Well, I think Dana hit it right on the head. 2 years worth of work, $7 million, and all the Republicans were able to add was texture and anecdotes to what we knew already. No new conclusions, no new evidence of Secretary Clinton somehow engaging in wrongdoing, no new evidence of a military stand-down order or gun running or any of those things. And so the Republicans are trying to make a virtue of the fact that it's not focused on Secretary Clinton, but it wasn't for lack of trying. They tried for 2 years and failed. And they ran this committee from the very beginning in a way to exclude us. They excluded us from witness interviews without telling us. They didn't share information when it contradicted the narrative they wanted to create. They issued subpoenas in violation of House rules without consulting or having a vote on them. So they made it very plain this was going to be partisan from the beginning, much as Mr. McCarthy, one of the leadership, said the goal here really was to try to attack the secretary. And the fact that they failed shouldn't be held up as some kind of a applause line for the Republicans.
Democrats released their own report yesterday. In this Republican report today, there's a lot of criticism of the Defense Department not responding in the immediate aftermath of the attack. There's also a little finger pointing at the late Ambassador Chris Stevens as well. What did you think of that?
Well, look, I think it's terrible to be pointing fingers at an ambassador who gave his life for his country. He understood the risks. He loved Libya. He wanted to establish a more firm presence in Benghazi. No one understood the dangers more than he did, and I have nothing but respect for him. In terms of the criticism of the Defense Department, those issues were raised years ago in terms of the fact that our response teams were not co-located with the planes that they would fly on. Those are things that have now been addressed. Assets have been repositioned closer to the region where they may be needed. But none of that is new. And the fact that they're leveling new criticisms doesn't justify this 2-year, $7 million expense. So, I thought we were going to be gravely disappointed in this report. But those of us that participated in the prior investigations could see this coming for years now. And the only thing I can hope that comes out of this is not the Pentagon response, which happened already more than a year ago, but rather that Congress never revisits this kind of a taxpayer-funded investigatory committee established for essentially political and partisan purposes.
I know no one wants to speak ill of the dead, sir, but isn't it appropriate to look at the role of anyone who was involved in this, including Ambassador Stevens?
Oh, absolutely. And, I think it's perfectly fair to consider why did the ambassador think it was important to have a presence in Benghazi? But look, this man gave his life for his country and did it for all the right reasons. He wanted to have a presence there. He thought it was important for the United States, for our national security policy and our foreign policy. So I have nothing but praise for his motivations, for wanting to do what he did. And I don't think the failures, if there were failures, and there certainly were, in terms of State Department security, should be laid at the feet of the ambassador. I think he was a great Foreign Service officer.
One of the reasons that we all, the public collectively, found out about Hillary Clinton's use of a private email address and a private email server solely while she was Secretary of State was because of the information that this committee sought. Do you see, in sort of even an indirect way, the utility in that?
Well, look, the Secretary has said that she should not have used a private email account, and she's acknowledged that was a mistake. But that wasn't the point of the investigation. The point of the investigation supposedly was to try to come up with something new about Benghazi. So by the majority's own definition, that really was not something that they were trying to achieve. But course, you know, from the point of view of their leadership, this was exactly what they're trying to achieve, trying to find something they could use against the secretary. But frankly, I think the American people, to paraphrase Bernie Sanders, are tired of hearing about the emails. They're more concerned with who's going to protect the country and who's going to restore our economy. And I think those are the issues that voters will be caring about in November.
Congressman Adam Schiff, thank you so much. And I do